go. Before we start reading, close your books. We're going to talk a little bit. First off, it's called The Best Christmas Pageant Ever. But if you look at the cover, you can see it actually says The Worst Christmas Pageant Ever, and they crossed it off and wrote Best. And you see a crazy, depending on your copy of the book, a crazy little person dressed as an angel, like screaming. So what kind of predictions do you guys have about this book? Riley? They're going to be putting on a play for Christmas. Maggie, what's your prediction?
I feel like there's gonna be like these kids that are really bad, and they're gonna end up like going to church or something or school, and they're gonna end up like volunteering for a play.
All right, I like that prediction.
And they said like people know that they're like bad people, and they don't think it's gonna turn out to be a good play. They think it's gonna be a bad play.
Okay, so kind of some ornery kids sign up to do a play, and so everybody expects it's going to be bad. Okay. Yeah. Fiona, what do you think? Hang on.
I think kind of the same thing at Maggie, except I don't think they're going to be going to a school. I think they're going to have like a street parade or a pageant to where they can actually do it somewhere and not just for the school. I think it can be something bigger, but I think they're really bad kids. And they decide to mess up the Christmas pageant. Then they realize on how much everybody actually cares about the Christmas pageant, so they make it the best Christmas pageant ever.
All right. Sean, what do you think?
I think no one likes her, and she's not going to go in a pageant and do all this.
Sean's holding up the back of the book. He read the back. Oh, were you reading the back of it?
No.
Oh, okay. He said, all right.
Wait, is that true?
No, I don't know. I read this when I was about your age. I own this book somewhere at home, but I don't remember anything about it. I just remember the cover of it, and I remember reading it, and it was a funny book. But I don't remember much about it. So, okay, listen carefully. Read the back. The Herdmans are the worst kids in the history of the world. They lie, steal, smoke cigars, swear, and hit little kids. That is pretty bad. No one is prepared when this outlaw family invades church one Sunday and decides to take over the annual Christmas pageant. So that's kind of a really, really good predictions that you guys have. None of the Herdmans have ever heard the Christmas story before. Their interpretation of the tale, the wise men are a bunch of dirty spies, and Herod needs a good beating, has a lot of people up in arms, but it will make this year's pageant the most unusual anyone has seen and possibly the best one ever. So I just remember reading this as a kid and thinking it was really funny. So, all right. Before we get started, though, I want to talk a little bit about point of view. And I'm not talking about point of view like first person, second person, third person, like using I, me, my, or he, she, they. I'm not talking about that kind of point of view. I'm talking about like a different perspective that you may have. So not everybody always agrees on things. We all have different life experiences and different opinions and beliefs a lot of times because we've had those different life experiences. So like just reading the back of the book, I'm thinking where it said like none of the Herdmans has ever been to church before. So probably like most of the people that are in the Christmas pageant at the church have been to church like for years and years and years, and they know what church is about, and they have this one idea of what the Christmas story could be like. But the Herdmans clearly are not, they don't have that same perspective or point of view on the Christmas story at all. So they're going to do things a little differently. Does anybody have an example of anything where you thought you had a really, really good idea, and then when you talked to your friends, it turned out you guys had completely different perspectives on things? Or you already had your hand raised. What do you want?
I thought it was going to be about
what?
It was like, so kind of like Miranda sings when she was on the stage at the church. She was like, could sing. Well, no, she wasn't. Miranda sings like, if she don't win, she would throw a big temper tantrum.
Okay, so throwing temper tantrum, maybe.
Blaming stuff on other people.
Okay.
Looks like she started destroying the place because she didn't win. I think the kids.
All right. Josie, you've had your head raised for a while.
Okay, so I actually just had this a few days ago, like last week. I was having a meet with my friend, and we were playing charades, and I came up with the idea of doing different after-school activities, which I thought was a super great idea. Like you could do cheerleading, football, like you could do a bunch of different things to guess, but then she couldn't come up with any of them. So I thought it was a really good idea, but she thought it was like an impossible thing. So we had very, very different points of view on that. Like it was
That's a
just
great
very
idea.
different.
Yeah. So if you're someone that's used to doing a lot of stuff after school or doing a lot of like dance or sports or gymnastics or something like that, then you've got lots of ideas, piano lessons, whatever. Or if you're somebody that just goes home and plays video games or watches TV, you're not going to have any idea what your friends are talking about when they say after school activities. So yeah, that's a great example. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and read chapter 1. I'm going to shut the door because I feel like there's a lot of noise coming from Belk's room. All right. Okie dokie, friends. All right. If you have your book, open up to chapter 1. All right. Chapter 1. The Herdmans were absolutely the worst kids in the history of the world. They lied and stole and smoked cigars, even the girls, and talked dirty and hit little kids and cussed their teachers and took the name of the Lord in vain and set fire to Fred Shoemaker's old broken down tool house. These are some bad dudes. And girls too. And girls. All right, dudes and dudettes. All right. The tool house burned right down to the ground. And I think that surprised the Herdmans. They set fire to things all the time. But that was the first time they managed to burn down a whole building. I guess it was an accident. I don't suppose they woke up that morning and said to one another, let's go burn down Fred Shoemaker's tool house. But maybe they did. After all, it was a Saturday and not much going on. It was a terrific fire. 2 engines and 2 police cars and all the volunteer firemen and 5 dozen donuts sent up from the Tasty Lunch Diner. The donuts were supposed to be for the firemen, but by the time they got the fire out, the donuts were all gone. The Herdmans got them. What they couldn't eat, they stuffed in their pockets and down the front of their shirts. You could actually see the donuts all around Ollie Herdman's middle. Ew. Ew. I couldn't understand why the Herdmans were hanging around the scene of their crime. Everybody knew the whole thing was their fault, and you'd think they'd have the brains to get out of sight. One fireman even collared Claude Herdman and said, did you kids start this fire, smoking cigars in that tool house? But Claude just said, we weren't smoking cigars, and they weren't. They were playing with Leroy Herdman's Young Einstein chemistry set, which he stole from the hardware store, and that was how the fire started. Leroy said so. We mixed all the little powders together, he said, and poured lighter fluid around on them and set fire to the lighter fluid. We wanted to see if the chemistry set was any good.
Very smart.
Sounds very smart, Parker says. Any other kid, even a mean kid, would have been a little bit worried if he stole $4.95 worth of something and then burned down a building with it. But Leroy was just mad because the chemistry set got burned up along with everything else before he had a chance to make 1 or 2 bombs. The fire chief got us all together. There were 15 or 20 kids standing around watching the fire and gave us a little talk about playing with matches and gasoline and dangerous things like that. Sam.
I'm sorry. Talking about matches and gasoline. That sounds something that my brother would do.
Sam says that's something his brother Rhett would do.
Yeah. So
this is
every
scaring
time
me.
we have a fire, he wants to pour like a whole bucket of gasoline on it and then throw something with fire on it.
He said his brother likes to try to burn gasoline on their fires. This is no good. I hope your parents discourage this because he could get really burned.
Oh yeah.
This bad.
Yeah. Maggie.
My brothers have learned from playing with fire because my brother burnt his leg playing with fire a few years ago.
Yeah, I remember that. He got burned pretty darn good, like really bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, and so that kind of sounds like something.
Yeah, you have a self to text connection there, Maggie, for sure. Like, yeah. Okay. Sam Curley still talking.
So do you know Wiley Rives?
Wiley?
Yeah.
All right, so Wiley, what about
His
Wiley?
younger brother. So he got burnt, and then there's a Honda sign, like a Honda sticker. He's riding a dirt bike and he got burnt. And then there's a Honda sticker like right here on his. Yeah.
So he got burned and it burned the Honda logo onto him?
Yeah.
Wiley got burned, his little brother.
Eli.
Got burned and the Honda symbol is now burned onto him. Interesting. Zeke.
Okay, so I have a story. So once Riker, Charlie Dacus' little brother.
Yeah, I know Riker Dacus.
So Riker, he was in the woods. We were at a camp out, and he had a fire, and Walker was making a torch, and Riker accidentally hit himself with an axe in the head, and he came up crying. And while I was having the torch started by Riker, and Walker was like running forward, and he pushed the torch into my back, and it burned a giant hole in my sweatshirt.
All right, so Zeke, I don't know if you could hear that. Something about they were out in the woods camping with the Dacuses, Charlie Dacus and her little brother Riker.
No, Charlie wasn't there.
Charlie wasn't there. All right, it's just the boys. And Charlie's brother Riker hit himself with an axe in the head. That sounds awful altogether. But then somehow there was a torch, and Zeke's sweatshirt got burned with the torch. It's a disaster. This is a lot of disasters. A lot of disasters. I don't know what's happening. Okay, I'm going to continue with the story.
I have a
I'm
quick
a
question.
little nervous that we need to have some sort of fire training here, friends.
I have a quick little story.
I mean, I thought that the fire department comes to visit you when you're like preschool, kindergarten, but maybe we need to come have a lesson for the fifth graders. Yeah. Yeah. Riley's dad can come out and talk to us. He's a volunteer fireman. Your dad can come talk to us.
He's at work.
He's like, nah. All right. Class. Back on track. Okay. So in the story, the fire chief got them all together. So don't play with the gasoline and the matches. Dangerous things like that. I don't say that's what happened here, he told us. I don't know what happened here, but that could have been it, and you see the result. So let this be a good lesson to you, boys and girls. Of course, it was a great lesson to the Herdmans. They learned that wherever there's a fire, there will be free donuts sooner or later. I guess things would have been different if they'd burned down, say, the Second Presbyterian Church instead of the tool house. But the tool house was about to fall down anyway. All the neighbors had pestered Mr. Shoemaker to do something about it because it looked so awful and was sure to bring rats. So everybody said the fire was a blessing in disguise, and even Mr. Shoemaker said it was a relief. My father said it was the only good thing the Herdmans ever did, and if they'd known it was a good thing, they wouldn't have done it at all. They would have set fire to something else or somebody. They were just so all around awful, you could hardly believe they were real. Ralph, Imogene, Leroy, Claude, Ollie, and Gladys. 6 skinny, stringy-haired kids, all alike, except for being different sizes and having different black and blue places where they had clonked each other. Shh, guys, listen. They lived over a garage at the bottom of Sproul Hill. Nobody used the garage anymore, but the Herdmans used to bang the door up and down just as fast as they could and try and squash one another. That was their idea of a game. Where other people had grass in their front yard, the Herdmans had rocks. And where other people had hydrangea bushes, the Herdmans had poison ivy. There was also a sign in the yard that said, "Beware of the cat." Usually people have a sign that says beware of the dog. Now I'm very interested in how awful a cat can, like an attacked cat. Sean?
So when I was watching last year, I don't know how I still remember this. But when I was watching TV, they went into a junkyard and it said beware of a cat, but it turns out it was a tiger.
Okay.
Lion.
So Sean said he saw a movie where it said beware of the cat, but it's actually like a lion or a tiger or something. So, okay, beware of the cat. Maybe they have a tiger or a lion. Good Lord. Okay, new kids always laughed about that until they got a look at the cat. It was the meanest looking animal I ever saw. It had one short leg and a broken tail and one missing eye. And the mailman wouldn't deliver anything to the Herdmans because of it. I don't think it's a regular cat at all, the mailman told my father. I think those kids went up in the hills and caught themselves a bobcat. Oh, I don't think you can tame a wild bobcat, my father said. I'm sure you can't, said the mailman. They'd never try to tame it. They just try to make it wilder than it was to begin with. If that was their plan, it worked. The cat would attack anything it could see out of its one eye. One day, Claude Herdman emptied the whole first grade in 3 minutes flat when he took the cat to show and tell. He didn't feed it for 2 days, so it was already mad, and then he carried it to school in a box, and when he opened the box, the cat shot out, right straight up in the air, people said. It came down on the top blackboard ledge and clawed 4 big long scratches all the way down the blackboard. Then it just tore around all over the place, scratching little kids and shedding fur and scattering books and papers everywhere. The teacher, Miss Brandel, yelled for everybody to run out in the hall, and she pulled a coat over her head and grabbed a broom and tried to corner the cat. But of course she couldn't see with the coat over her head, so she just ran up and down the aisles hollering, "Here, kitty," and smacking the broom down whenever the cat hissed back. She knocked over the Happy Family dollhouse and a globe of the world and broke the aquarium full of 20 gallons of water and about 65 goldfish. All the time she kept yelling for Claude to come and catch his cat. But Claude had gone out in the hall with the rest of the class. Later, when Miss Brandel was slapping Band-Aids on everyone who could show her any blood, she asked Claude why in the world he didn't come get his cat under control. "You told us to go out in the hall," Claude said, just as if he were the ordinary kind of first grader who did whatever teachers said to do. The cat settled down a little bit once it got something to eat, most of the goldfish and Ramona Billion's 2 pet mice that she brought to show and tell. Ramona cried and carried on so. I can't even bury them, she said. They sent her home. The room was a wreck. Broken glass and papers and books and puddles of water and dead goldfish everywhere. Miss Brandel was sort of a wreck too, and most of the first graders were hysterical. So somebody took them outdoors and let them have recess for the rest of the day. What does hysterical mean? Hysterical. What does hysterical mean? Jason, what does hysterical mean? Surprise. Grayson. All right, laughing like maniacs. I don't know if they're laughing right now. But Sean.
It's like forever everybody's going to
Kind of. Zeke.
It's like hysterical is kind of like historical. Like they have like a surprise face. And then,
A surprise
they're
face?
like in shock.
In shock. Cam, what do you think?
They're crying, they're screaming, they can't get themselves under control. It can either mean that you're laughing hysterically because something is extremely funny, or you could be crying hysterically because something's either sad or you're just like, oh my gosh. So there's multiple meanings.
So hysterical kind of just means like crazy, out of control. You can be laughing hysterically, like Cam said, so you're laughing so much you can't control it. It's just like crazy. You can be crying hysterically. Something is so horribly sad, you can't control your crying. So hysterical is like a crazy, out of control behavior, okay? So The first graders were hysterical. They were probably hysterical in like an upset kind of a way because all the class goldfish are dead. There's glass everywhere. The room is destroyed. So probably, I mean, and they're only first graders, so they were probably pretty darn upset, and it was hard to get them back under control.
I have a theory.
Sam has a theory.
Okay, so I think that what are they called?
The herdmen,
Yeah, the herdmen. They might be Terminators.
they might be Terminators.
Yeah, but they're not like real Terminators, but they kind of are.
They're like human.
Yeah, human. Yeah, but
They're like a cyborg, but
They're like a cyborg. Okay, I don't know what's going on here. My boys are crazy. Okay,
cyborg Terminator.
all right. Somebody let the first graders. Class. Boys. Claude took the cat home. And after that, there was a rule that you couldn't bring anything alive to show and tell. The Herdmans moved from grade to grade through the Woodrow Wilson School like those South American fish that strip your bones clean in 3 minutes flat, which was just about what they did to one teacher after another. But they never got kept back in a grade. When it was time for Claude Herdman to pass to the second grade, he didn't know his ABCs or his numbers or his colors or his shapes or his three bears or how to get along with anybody. But Miss Brandel passed him anyway. For one thing, she knew she'd have Ollie Herdman the next year. That was the thing about the Herdmans. There was always another one coming along. And no teacher was crazy enough to let herself in for two of them at once. I was always in the same grade with Imogene Herdman. And what I did was stay out of her way. It wasn't easy to stay out of her way. You couldn't do it if you were very pretty or very ugly or very smart or very dumb or had anything unusual about you, like red hair or double jointed thumbs. But if you were sort of a medium kid like me and kept your mouth shut when the teacher said who can name all 50 states, you had a pretty good chance to stay clear of Imogene. As far as anyone could tell, Imogene was just like the rest of the Herdmans. She never learned anything either except dirty words and secrets about everybody. Twice a year, we had to go to the health room to get weighed and measured, and Imogene always managed to find out exactly what everybody weighed. Sometimes she would hang around waiting for the nurse, Miss Hemphill, to give her a Band-Aid. Sometimes she would sneak behind the curtain where they kept a folding cot and just stay there the whole time with one eye on the scales. "Why are you still here, Imogene?" Miss Hemphill asked one day. "You can go back to your room." "I think you better look and see if I've got what Ollie has." "What does Ollie have?" Imogene shrugged. We don't know. Red spots all over." Miss Hemphill looked at her. "What did the doctor say?" "We didn't have a doctor," Imogene began, scrunching her back up and down against the medicine cabinet. "Well, does Ollie have a fever? Is he in bed?" "No, he's in first grade." "Right now?" Miss Hemphill stared. "Why, he shouldn't be in school with red spots. It could be measles or chickenpox, any number of things, contagious things. What are you doing?" "Scratching my back," Imogene said. "Boy, do I itch." "The rest of you boys and girls go back to your classroom," Miss Hemphill said. "And Imogene, you stay right here." So we all went back to our room, and Miss Hemphill went to the first grade to look at Ollie. And Imogene stayed in the health room and copied down everybody's weight from Miss Hemphill's records. Your weight was supposed to be a big secret, like what you got on your report card. "It's nobody's business what you get on your report card," all the teachers said. And Miss Hemphill said the same thing. It's nobody's business what you weigh. Not even the fat kids could find out what they weighed. But Imogene always knew. "Don't let Albert Petrie on the swing," she would yell at recess. "He'll bust it. Albert Petrie weighs 143 pounds. Last time he weighed 137. So right away, everybody knew two things about Albert. We knew exactly how fat he was, and we knew that he was getting fatter all the time. You have to go to fat camp this summer," Imogene hollered at him. "Miss Hemphill wrote it down on your paper. Fat camp is a place where they feed you lettuce and grapefruit and cottage cheese and eggs for a month, and you either give up and cheat or give up and get skinny." "I am not," Albert said. "I'm going to Disneyland with my Uncle Frank." "That's what you think," Imogene told him. Albert had to believe her. She was always right about things like that. So all year he had fat camp to look forward to instead of Disneyland. Sometimes Imogene would blackmail the fat kids if they had anything she wanted, like Wanda Pierce's charm bracelet. Wanda Pierce weighed about a ton. She even had fat eyes, and her hobby was this charm bracelet. How do you have fat eyes? Okay. It had 22 charms, and every single one did something. The little wheels turned, or the little bitty piano keys went plink, or the little tiny drawers opened and closed. Besides being a fat kid, Wanda was also a rich kid. So every time you turned around, she had a new charm. Look at my new charm, she would say. It costs $6.95 without the tax. It's a bird, and when you push this little knob, its wings flutter. It costs $6.95. Now, this book was written back when $6.95 was a big deal. 1972. Okay, so $6.95, that's probably like saying, I don't know, 30, 40 bucks. But, yeah, it was kind of a pricey thing back then. That's when this copy was. It was written in 1972. Okay, that means this book is older than Miss Bab. It's older than me. Something is older than me. Yay.
Same age as my mom.
There you go. All right. They were great charms, but everybody got sick of hearing about them. So it was almost a relief when Imogene blackmailed her out of it. I know how much you weigh, Wanda, Imogene told her. I wrote it down on this piece of paper, see? It must have been an awful amount because even Wanda looked horrified. So Imogene got her charm bracelet and she got Lucille Golden's imitation alligator pocketbook with Souvenir of Florida written on it. For a while, she got 10 cents a week from Floyd Brush till Floyd caught double pneumonia and lost 15 pounds and didn't care anymore. My friend Alice Wendlekin was so nasty clean that she had detergent hands by the time she was 4 years old. Just the same, Alice picked up a case of head lice when she was at summer camp, and somehow Imogene found out about that. She would sneak up on Alice at recess and holler, "Cooties!" and smack Alice's head. She nearly knocked Alice cross-eyed before one of the teachers saw her and took both of them into the principal. Now, what's all of this about? The principal wanted to know. But Alice wouldn't say. I had to hit her, Imogene told him. She's got cooties, and I saw one crawling in her hair, and I don't want them on me. You did not see one, Alice said. I don't have them anymore. What do you mean you don't have them anymore? The principal said. Did you have them lately? It really shook him up. He didn't want a whole school full of kids with cooties. So he sent Alice to the health room, and the nurse went all through her head with a fine-tooth comb and a magnifying glass, and finally said it was all right. But it was too late. Everybody called Alice Cooties the whole rest of the year. If Imogen didn't know a secret about a person, she would make one up. She would catch you in the girls' room or out in the hall and whisper, I know what you did. And then you'd go crazy trying to figure out what it was you did that Imogen knew about. It was no good trying to get secrets on the Herdmans. Everybody already knew about the awful things they did. You couldn't even tease them about their parents or holler your father's in jail because they didn't care. Actually, they didn't know what their father was or where he was or anything about him because when Gladys was 2 years old, he climbed on a railroad train and disappeared. Nobody blamed him. Now and then you'd see Mrs. Herdman walking the cat on a length of chain around the block, but she worked double shifts at the shoe factory and wasn't home much. My mother's friend, Miss Phillips, was a social service worker, and she tried to get some welfare money for the Herdmans so Mrs. Herdman could work just one shift and spend more time with her children. But Mrs. Herdman wouldn't do it. She liked the work, she said. It's not the work, Miss Phillips told my mother, and it's not the money. It's just that she'd rather be at the shoe factory than shut up at home with that crowd of kids. I can't say that I blame her, she sighed. So the Herdmans pretty much looked after themselves. Ralph looked after Imogene, and Imogene looked after Leroy. Leroy looked after Claude, and so on down the line. The Herdmans were like most big families. The big ones taught the little ones everything they knew. And the proof of that was the meanest Herdman of all was Gladys, the youngest. We figured they were headed straight for hell by the way of the state penitentiary. Whoa, language. Until they got themselves mixed up with the church and my mother and our Christmas pageant. So, our narrator. What do we know about our narrator? Are they one of the Herdmans? No. Zeke, what do we know about our narrator?
He's a kid that he doesn't want anything to do with the Herdmans.
He doesn't want anything to do with the Herdmans. Somebody's sending a chat message, but it's not showing me the chat messages. I don't know why.
It's that I raised my hand on there.
Oh, okay.
He's so he is a kid in the same grade as Imogen, and he doesn't want anything to do with any of their husbands, and he thinks he's lucky because he's like an average kid that never goes.
All right. So our narrator is a kid that's in class with Imogene. He definitely doesn't agree with what they're doing, and he's glad that he's kind of an average kid and he stays out of their way. So Imogene doesn't have any reason to tease him or be mean to him. So let's think about this. Is this story in first person, I, me, my, or third person, he, she, them? Or second, narrator is talking to you. What do you think? You think second person, the narrator's telling us a story? Lily says third person because we see them saying
No,
he,
it's first
she,
person because this is
It's
a
third
character
person.
inside of the story because she's talking about she talked to her dad and that she's like in the story. It isn't like she's a character saying the story outside of it. She is
all right.
first person.
So DJ says first person because the narrator is a character in the story. Hang on. Okay, we're going to think on this some more. We're going to read tomorrow's chapter before we make a decision, because tomorrow's chapter is more about the narrator instead of the herdman. So we'll read tomorrow's chapter and then we'll make a decision. For today, you now have a worksheet. We are only going to do the first side of it today that has questions on it. Okay. So virtual friends on Seesaw, you have an assignment that's best worst Christmas pageant ever. And it's probably 2 pages on Seesaw. Let me double check. Hang on. Best Christmas pageant ever, chapter 1. And it is 1, 2, 3 pages long. You do not need to do the 3rd page. You only need to do the questions on page 1 and 2 on Seesaw. Okay. So you'll just hit add response, the green add response button. Those of you that are new to being virtual on your Seesaw, you should have Best Christmas Pageant Ever, chapter 1 assigned to you. Click the green add response button, and then you'll use text boxes to type your answers on there. Okay. So that's how that'll work. And you have time to work on that now. So if you guys want to hang up from the call now, work on that and get it submitted to me. Guys, right, okay. All right. Now it's finally showing me the chat. I don't know why.
It's not the chat. It's the, if you see, I'm going to raise my hand. It's down in the bottom corner right there. It makes that noise whenever I raise my hand, just so you know that I'm raising my hand if you can't see me.
Okay, got you. I can see everybody. I changed the screen so that I can see everybody.
Yeah, like on a really big meeting. So.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. All right, so you guys can go ahead and hang up for now. Go work on your worksheet, and then I'll see you at 9 for math. Okay?
Wait,
hey, Kendall.
I have a question.
Yeah, Kendall, go first.
The thing won't work. I can't see the worksheet.
Are you on Seesaw?
Yeah, it won't show me it.
Go to, you have to change classes, Kendall. You've got 2 classes now. On the top left, change your class, and you should have one called Babs Blue Jays at Home.
Okay.
Change to the one that says Babs Blue Jays at Home. You need to be on that one now that you're at home.
Thank you, Mrs. Bab.
You're welcome.
Wait, what time do I go down?
All right, so you guys get busy on this.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys. Bye. You guys have about 15 minutes or so to work on that.
Hey, Miss Bab.
Hang on just a second. All right, guys, get busy. Yes, Josie, go ahead.
So when do we need to throw away our mold